The story of Joseph is found in Genesis 37 to 50. From the life of Joseph, we can understand that God's plan is greater than our trials. Faithfulness in hard times leads to blessings. Forgiveness brings healing, and God's timing is perfect. Rachel, Jacob's beloved wife, is unable to conceive for many years while her sister Leah bears many children. She is deeply distressed and even says to Jacob, "Give me children or else I die." Out of frustration, Rachel gives her maidservant, Bilhah, to Jacob as a surrogate. Bilhah bears Dan and Naphtali, but Rachel still longs for her own child. After years of waiting, God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. This moment marks a divine intervention in her life. Rachel conceives and gives birth to a son, Joseph. She names him Joseph, saying, "May the Lord add to me another son." The name Joseph means "he will add," reflecting her hope for another child. Shortly after Joseph's birth, Jacob decides it's time to leave his father-in-law Laban and return to his homeland. This signals a turning point in the family's journey. As Joseph grows, he becomes Jacob's favored son, as Rachel was Jacob's beloved wife. This favoritism later causes tension among his brothers. Rachel later conceives again and gives birth to Benjamin, but tragically, she dies in childbirth. Her death makes Joseph's birth even more significant to Jacob. Jacob loves Joseph more than his other sons and gives him a coat of many colors. This favoritism makes his brothers jealous and resentful. Joseph tells his brothers about his dream, where their sheaves of wheat bow to his. His brothers are furious, believing he thinks he will rule over them. Joseph shares another dream where the sun, moon, and 11 stars bow to him, representing his family. Even Jacob is surprised, though he keeps the matter in mind. The brothers' jealousy turns into hatred. They refuse to speak kindly to Joseph and begin plotting against him. Jacob sends Joseph to check on his brothers in the fields. When they see him approaching, they plot to kill him and throw his body into a pit. Reuben convinces his brothers not to kill Joseph, but to throw him into a dry pit instead. He plans to secretly rescue him later. When Joseph arrives, the brothers strip him of his colorful coat and throw him into the pit. He cries for help, but they ignore him. While Reuben is away, the brothers sell Joseph to Ishmaelite traders for 20 pieces of silver. The brothers dip Joseph's coat in goat's blood and tell Jacob that a wild animal killed him. Jacob mourns deeply. Joseph is taken to Egypt and sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. Though betrayed, God is with him. Joseph, now a slave, enters Potiphar's house, a foreigner in a wealthy Egyptian home. He's dressed in the modest clothes of a servant, standing in the grand courtyard of Potiphar's estate. The sun shines brightly, highlighting the opulence of the estate. Potiphar observes Joseph working hard, managing household affairs with efficiency and integrity. His approval is evident as he pats Joseph on the back, entrusting him with more responsibility. Potiphar's wife watches Joseph, her interest turning into temptation. She tries to seduce him, her eyes full of desire as she beckons him closer in a lavishly furnished room. In a dramatic moment, Potiphar's wife grabs Joseph's cloak as he tries to escape her grasp. He pulls away, leaving the cloak behind, running for his life through a corridor. Potiphar's wife stands before the servants, holding Joseph's coat and claiming that Joseph tried to assault her. She points at the coat, emphasizing her false accusation. Joseph, now falsely accused, is thrown into an Egyptian prison. He stands in the dark, cold cell with shackles around his wrists, but his head is held high, trusting in God's plan. Joseph is busy doing menial tasks in the prison. The warden observes him with curiosity and notices how Joseph works diligently and with integrity. Joseph is given authority over the other prisoners, becoming the overseer. He is seen managing the prison operations, giving instructions to other prisoners. 2 royal officers, the chief butler and the chief baker, are thrown into prison. They look downcast, unsure of their fate, and Joseph observes them. The chief butler shares his troubling dream with Joseph. Joseph listens intently and then, by God's grace, interprets the dream. The chief baker shares his dream, hoping for a positive interpretation. Joseph listens and gives the interpretation that the baker will be executed in 3 days. The interpretation of the butler's dream comes true. The butler is restored to his position, and Joseph asks him to remember him before Pharaoh. Joseph waits in the prison for 2 more years, his situation unchanged. The prison is dark, and Joseph's face reflects his longing for freedom, but still holds on to his faith. Pharaoh experiences 2 troubling dreams that no one in his court can interpret. His face is filled with worry as he gathers his advisors. The butler remembers Joseph's ability to interpret dreams and tells Pharaoh about him. Pharaoh sends for Joseph in haste. Joseph is brought before Pharaoh. He is clean-shaven and dressed in new clothes, standing before Pharaoh with confidence but humility. Pharaoh recounts his 2 dreams to Joseph. 7 fat cows are eaten by 7 thin cows, and 7 healthy ears of grain are devoured by 7 thin ears. Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dreams, revealing that Egypt will experience 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. Joseph, with confidence, advises Pharaoh to appoint a wise and discerning man to oversee the grain storage. Pharaoh, impressed with Joseph's wisdom, appoints him as second in command over all of Egypt, giving him the responsibility to prepare for the famine. Joseph begins his new role, overseeing the grain storage program. He travels across Egypt, collecting and storing grain during the years of plenty. The 7 years of plenty come to an end, and famine begins to spread across the land. People from surrounding nations come to Egypt to buy grain. Joseph's brothers, unaware that he is the powerful ruler of Egypt, travel to Egypt to buy grain because of the famine. They are nervous as they approach Egypt's gates. Joseph, now dressed in Egyptian royal garments, notices his brothers as they come before him to request grain. He recognizes them immediately but hides his emotions. Joseph accuses his brothers of being spies, testing their honesty and character. He demands they bring their youngest brother, Benjamin, to prove they are truthful. The brothers return to Canaan with heavy hearts, knowing that they must tell their father about the demand for Benjamin. They explain their situation to Jacob. After much persuasion, Jacob reluctantly agrees to send Benjamin with his brothers to Egypt. He is fearful of losing another son, but knows it is the only way to get food. The brothers return to Egypt with Benjamin, and they stand before Joseph once again. Joseph still hides his identity, but is visibly moved upon seeing his younger brother. Joseph arranges for a silver cup to be secretly placed in Benjamin's sack. He accuses them of theft when the brothers leave, and they return to face him. Judah steps forward, pleading with Joseph to let Benjamin go, even offering himself as a substitute. His speech is full of emotion, showing the change in his heart since the days of Joseph's betrayal. Joseph can no longer hold back his emotions. He reveals himself to his brothers, saying, "I am Joseph, your brother whom you sold into Egypt." The brothers are stunned and terrified. Joseph reassures his brothers that they are not to blame for what happened, telling them that it was God's plan for him to be in Egypt to save their lives. Joseph sends his brothers back to Canaan with carts full of supplies to bring their father Jacob to Egypt. The brothers are given gifts, and the news of Joseph's survival is delivered to Jacob. Jacob sets out for Egypt with his family, led by the news of Joseph's survival. The journey is long, and Jacob is filled with emotions as he heads to reunite with his son. Jacob finally reaches Egypt and is reunited with Joseph. Their embrace is filled with tears and joy, and they exchange heartfelt words. Jacob's long years of mourning are ended. Joseph introduces his family to Pharaoh. Pharaoh welcomes them to Egypt, giving them the land of Goshen to settle in as a sign of honor and respect for Joseph. Jacob, now elderly, blesses Pharaoh before he settles in the land of Goshen. Despite being a foreigner in Egypt, Jacob offers a blessing of prosperity and peace.